So, with January marking the beginning of Social Security recipients and government aid recipients, SSI, SSDI, folks on SSA, Social Security Administration has issued the 8.7% COLA increase for recipients starting in January. So, some of you may have already begun to receive these checks. Now, granted, we are in a period of high inflation and we are in the middle of a recession, actually perhaps maybe the beginning of a recession, which means that now is going to be more important than ever to really focus on maximizing your budget and being as frugal as possible while you work towards saving as much money as you can and creating an emergency savings fund. Prior to pursuing opportunities out there to increase your income and supplement your income, which I have a few of those options available if anybody is interested and would like to know. There's some very simple and easy ways out there. Some as easy as simply downloading an app onto your smartphone and taking surveys and receiving compensation and being paid for doing so. Now, most importantly, the emergency budget. The emergency budget now is going to be a huge priority and a huge concern because there's a large portion of Americans out there that literally cannot afford a $500 emergency if they were to be faced with that situation. Granted, there is an increase in the cost of living adjustment, so ultimately Social Security, SSI, SSDI, other government aid recipients will see these allotments and these a boost to these payments, these checks that they receive. Although nothing quite like receiving a stimulus check or what a $2,000 stimulus check would do, the boost in the payments, the higher amounts on these checks need to be used and utilized and set aside for the possibility of the unknown. Obviously, we want to do all we can to mitigate the added weight and burden and stress that is placed upon us all because of inflation as we battle through this recession. But additionally, we want to make sure that we aren't unnecessarily putting ourselves in any precarious situations by not having an emergency fund. And depending on who you ask, an emergency fund is typically at least 3 months expenses. However, some may say an emergency fund should be 12 months at the very least. And this is all going to be dependent upon who you ask and perhaps maybe your employment situation, your income situation, your risks, your level of risk, and also your comfort level. Now, granted, it's easier said than done to build up an emergency savings of 1 month, let alone 1 month, 3 months, 12 months. It's easier said than done. But if we're not actually thinking about it and we're not actually doing it, then odds are it's going to be almost impossible to accomplish. Now, Dave Ramsey, his number one baby step is to make sure you have an emergency fund. And his is, I believe, $1,000. So that at any given time, you have access to a liquid asset, cash, more than likely, money in the bank, savings account, checking account, that you can have almost immediately, $1,000. But if perhaps maybe you're asking yourself or you're saying, Kevin, there's no way that I could actually come up with that kind of money to save. I do need help. Well, folks, I am here and I would love to have a conversation with you to determine and develop and get started on a path and ways to accomplish these goals so that that is no longer the case. You can begin to build this savings and this emergency savings, as well as move on to eliminating and wiping out debt, eliminating debt, reducing debt all the way down to zero. So you're not wasting money that you could be saving on interest payments, as the interest rates are going to continuously go up on all debts really, but the revolving adjustable rate credit card debt is quite possibly the most dangerous, with the Fed continuously raising interest rates. So with that being said, the emergency fund is going to be obviously at your discretion, what you're capable of, but I would definitely at least aim for the beginning starting point of $1,000 for an emergency savings, and then working my way up to a 1 month, a 3 month, and then a 12 month. Now, the monthly expenses, I believe currently the national average is around $5,000 or $6,000 a month. Now, granted, this is going to be different for everybody. So let's just use a round number of $5,000 a month. This may or may not be anywhere close to what your monthly expenses are, which include, basic living expenses, the overhead of shelter, and that could be rent, that could be a mortgage, that can include also your utilities, your insurance, your transportation, your healthcare, food. These are necessities that you have to have that you literally cannot go without every single month. And let's just say that number is $5,000. So the goal would be to first work towards a $1,000 emergency savings fund. Then from there, moving on to a 1 month, which would be a $5,000 emergency savings fund. Then moving on to a 3 month, which would be a $15,000 emergency savings fund. And then ultimately the pinnacle of 12-month emergency savings, which would be $60,000. Now, the 12-month is going to be great, especially if perhaps maybe you are in a situation where your employment may be not necessarily secured. And if you were to see a job loss and are uncertain as to how long it would take to replace that job and ultimately replace that income, 12 months would at least give you some breathing room to weather the storm and find a new job without putting yourself and or your family at risk. Obviously, the clock will be ticking if that were the case, and stress and anxiety levels will probably increase drastically. But they're only going to be worse if that happens and you have no savings to fall back on, and you literally can't go without a paycheck for any period of time without seeing some adverse effects to your bills, your shelter, your housing, your rent, your mortgage, your car payments, your credit could be destroyed. You could go hungry without food and certain things like that, unable to go to the doctor or anything. So we don't want that to happen. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're doing all we can with these recent boosts by the Social Security Administration and these increases that folks have maybe seeing on their January Social Security, SSI, SSDI, disability allotments and supplemental income from the government aid programs that they are approved for, and trying to use these increased funds to set up a safety net of an emergency savings account, an emergency savings safety net, just in case anything possibly may happen that we're not prepared for. So, folks, again, if you have any questions, if there's anything you would like me to cover more in depth, go deeper on perhaps maybe a specific video, or if you're super interested in learning how you too can find ways to supplement your own income, add additional income, perhaps maybe boost your ability to create this emergency savings and start generating additional funds coming in, feel free to reach out to me, contact me. I love to have a chat. You guys take care, be safe. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.